Is AMD a buy after the stock dropped 7% today after the company announced that its AI chip, the MI308, is unable to be sent to China, causing a loss in market for AMD? Now, this is a stock that we can see from its overall 5-year peak. The stock is down over 57%. So on today's episode, what I want to do is take a closer look at some of the bearish cases for AMD, some of the bullish cases for AMD, and why some investors are wondering, is this a buy before June 12th of 2025, which is going to be their massive AI event? So let's take a closer look in today's episode.
I want to thank The Motley Fool for sponsoring this video, and check out fool.com/Jose for the 10 best stocks to buy now. With that link, you get a promotional offer for the subscription service. Now, let's continue with today's episode.
All right, so first, too long don't watch. AMD, in my opinion, is a stock that can grow dramatically from these levels. Right now, with a market cap of 142, this is a stock that I believe in the next 5 years can easily be at least $500 billion in market cap. So that's at least tripling. Unfortunately, if you've been a shareholder of AMD for the past year, this must seem like the worst stock, but it's definitely doing kind of like a scary time in the semiconductor market, especially for one that's not currently leading in the AI space. Long term, for me, for those that are not familiar, AMD is definitely one of my main positions in my overall portfolio. It used to sit at number 2, but with some recent allocations, it's not selling of AMD, but it's adding of other positions. AMD has actually moved to number 5. Overall, I am still very much bullish in this company, and this is a stock that I'm pretty excited for the future growth potential. But because there is a lot of future growth potential, I think first we should kind of take a closer look at the risk. So this is the risk list, and for every company, I think it's always important to understand both the bullish and bearish case. For AMD, the biggest thing is the AI chip competition. You have intense rivals here with NVIDIA and emerging ASIC players, right? You have every big tech player designing their own AI chip, and you also have NVIDIA, who's kind of dominating in this market. Then if you look at their server CPU competition, they do have pressure from Intel and big tech that are all designing their ARM CPUs. You have Amazon has the Graviton, you have Microsoft has their Cobalt, you have Google have their Axion. So all big tech players are designing their own AI CPU. Now, in forms of consumer CPU, you kind of also have very similar things. You have big rivalry from Intel and obviously any ARM licensees. You have Qualcomm in this mix, MediaTek, which are all kind of designing now CPUs for the laptop and consumer PC market as well. Now, one of the biggest uncertainties right now are tariffs, and tariffs uncertainty can produce two major headwinds for AMD in the short term of things. First is potential margin hits, as obviously if things become more expensive in forms of developing a product, then that can impact margins, and that is one of the uncertainty coming with AMD. And I believe one of the reasons the stock has been very sad is because its stock price has been pretty deflated in the past few days. This is a stock that does have a nice amount of consumer market, so the consumer market is probably a little bit less stickier than the overall server market. Now, another thing with tariffs is that demand swings from changing trade duties. Can the overall tariff uncertainty create maybe a slowdown in demand as maybe things get too expensive? Another kind of risk here is going to be export restrictions, the loss of addressable market due to licensing controls. I mean, we just did see a recent one that I'm going to show the presentation or information from in a bit, but because the AI market is such a crucial technology, it is being used as kind of a way to maybe prevent certain countries or try to delay certain countries from innovating in that space. And finally, the biggest risk also is kind of the cyclical dependency of this in the semiconductor market, revenue sensitivity to macroeconomics, swings in PCs, data centers, and gaming sales. Obviously, the embedded market as well. So to me, these are some of the major risks for AMD. Regardless, I do believe the growth opportunities outweigh the risk, but I would love to hear from you, the viewers, if you have any thoughts on other risks that are impacting the stock right now. Now, we can see on April 15th, AMD announced that they are unable to ship the MI308, which is kind of export approved AI chip to China. It was like their H20 for their MI300. The H20 is the China version of the H100. The MI308 was the Chinese version of the MI300. And because of this, the company expects that the export controls may result in charges of up to approximately $800 million in inventory, purchase commitments, and related reserves. So it's not like they got fined, but because of this, they might have had orders that they can't complete. They might not be able to sell this, so they have to write it off at the moment and maybe later on figure out what they can do with it. Now we're going to look at some of the growth opportunities for AMD, but first, if you are curious about the semiconductor market, check out whatthechiphappened.com. It is my free daily semiconductor newsletter. You're going to learn everything about the semiconductor space, not just your popular companies right now. So we discuss everything. I mean, ASML just reported earnings. There is kind of a free ASML report there already. Now, if we look at growth opportunities for AMD, I think there's a lot, and I think these growth opportunities can outweigh a lot of the risk. So first is their AI accelerator momentum. The MI350, which is their AI chip that is coming soon, is expected to do really well, and I personally believe we might get some interesting new customers coming in for this one. And the MI400 roadmap, their overall AI chip roadmap, is definitely strong. Maybe not strong enough to ever destroy NVIDIA, but it is strong within its own sense to be able to grab or stick at least some little market share. They also did that recent acquisition of CT System, which helps them bolster up their rat scale integration. Now, and kind of moving here with, again, I don't think AMD is going to be the next NVIDIA, and I don't believe we're going to see that type of revenue growth. In a big AI market, even a silver or bronze of this $500 billion plus data center AI accelerator opportunity drives outsized revenue upside. So what I'm trying to say is, again, I don't think AMD is the next NVIDIA, but who cares? Who cares? Stop comparing it to that giant. I don't think any company will ever be able to compare to NVIDIA. But in this AI market, it's not a one-player take-all. Even silver or bronze or what's after bronze, which is maybe no trophies, can still get a nice amount of growth if they do provide some form of solution in this space. Now, the CPU leadership, I talked about competition, but AMD definitely is a leader in this space when it comes to CPU. With the AI market innovating, you can see the growth of maybe laptop sales and PC sales in the future, which could be very bullish for their consumer CPUs. Now, like I mentioned, the gaming and embedded market are pretty slow right now. And if these markets do turn around, which I believe they will, they could be a huge revenue booster for AMD. So these are my growth opportunities. And again, I do believe they outweigh the bad. So my favorite out of these are, I'm going to say, are first, the CPU leadership. I think this company is doing really good on EPYC and consumer CPUs, and I think they can continue to dominate here, even with competition. And second, I want to say is the big AI market. Even though they might not even get silver, or maybe they don't even get bronze, I believe they can still have a nice outsized revenue growth upside in this market. And then I would kind of go with this kind of embedded and gaming rebound. So like I mentioned, one of the big things happening is on June 12th of 2025, AMD is going to be having their AI event, and this is when they're most likely going to release the MI350. The MI350 is actually happening ahead of schedule. These events usually happen in the late 2020, in the late of the year. So I think we've seen it in October, November, and December. Now we're actually going to see it in June, and this to me is telling me that the company is really excited to show their new solution, and we might even have a new customer. For those not familiar, the MI300 is only sold to really two hyperscalers. It's only sold to Microsoft and Meta. You can add Oracle in the list, and maybe you can add IBM on the list, but the only two real big customers, in my opinion, are Meta and Microsoft. You don't have no Google and you don't have no Amazon. Now, during the most recent earnings from AMD, Lisa Su did mention that based on early progress and the strong customer interest in the MI350, they now plan to sample lead customers this quarter, which is quarter one, which it just passed right now, and are on track to accelerate production shipments to mid-year. So we can see that AMD is pretty excited about the MI350. Now, another thing that I think investors should be familiar with is we only think about AMD with their overall AI chip like a GPU very similar to NVIDIA. but they can also make ASIC solutions. So Lisa Su also mentioned in the same earnings call, we are also involved in a number of ASIC conversations, as well as customers want to really have an overall compute partner. So there are reports, and I'm pretty sure, let me just kind of Google right now, Microsoft, AMD CPU. So we can see AMD has already created kind of like custom EPYC CPUs for Microsoft. It's not impossible to think that AMD is also working with other players to create some form of custom GPU, which again could help them grow even more and more in this market share. Now, another great news that did come out recently is AMD was the first to achieve high performance computing product to be brought up on TSMC's next generation, the N2 node, which is also known as kind of like the 2 nanometer process technology. Now, this showcases a few things. It showcases a really strong partnership with AMD and TSMC, but it also showcases that AMD is definitely a leader when it comes to chip design. And this is going to be for their next generation EPYC processor CPU, which is for the server. This is going to be Venice, and it's the first high performance computing product in the industry to be taped out and brought up to TSMC. They also mentioned that they are using TSMC's Arizona plans to try to build some chips here in the United States. And this is something that we're seeing every single company try to do. But regardless, AMD is definitely a strong player when it comes to developing chips. Maybe we can see better improvements in their software skills and in their rack skills, but those are things they are trying to do. But at least one thing that I can say for certain is that AMD is great at designing chips. Now, AMD's forward PE ratio is trading at 19. Obviously, these forward PE ratios are based on analyst expectations, and with the current kind of headwinds in the market and market uncertainty, these expectations can actually get lower. So these price to sales ratios can be a little bit more expensive maybe next week or 2 weeks from now. Regardless, I do believe that this is going to be still trading at very cheap valuations, and in the long term could be a stock that can easily hit $500 billion in market cap. The company has plenty of cash and short-term investments, about $5 billion, free cash flow trailing 12 months of $2.4 billion, and total long-term debt of $1.8. Now, they did just recently finish an acquisition of CT Systems that can impact this balance sheet a little bit, but there are plans to make it better, and it is something I'm not necessarily too worried about. So those, I wouldn't say, I talked a little bit about kind of the risk impacting AMD. I am very bullish in more the growth opportunities, and even though the stock for the past year seems like it sucks, I believe this is a company that is perfect for dollar cost averaging over time, and when the stock gets pretty cheap, like what it is right now, maybe go heavier and heavier. So AMD is, I've been kind of rebalancing my portfolio, still very much semiconductor centric. NVIDIA is still my number one. AMD used to be my number two. It has changed, and now is the time when AMD is going to start to be more accreditive to my portfolio, if you catch my drift. So I hope you guys enjoyed today's episode. Take care, and don't forget to check out that free daily semiconductor newsletter.